I was having some physical symptoms before I went into psychosis. I was at my religious school, and I went and I got lost in the woods, and then all these voices like started appearing in my head, and they were like saying things about trying to get me out of the woods. And then luckily, because my phone battery was low, some lady came, and I knew she was a real person, but she came and she led me out of the woods, but I was still hearing a collection of voices. I went home, and the whole time my parents had to come down to get me. It was a 5-hour drive and a 5-hour drive home, so they were in the car for 10 hours. And the whole time, that I only know this because they told me, I was kind of out of it. I was talking the entire 5-hour trip to whoever was in my head. And then I thought that there were people at my apartment waiting for me. So when they parked the car at our house, I walked to my apartment. I ditched my phone. I ditched my shoes because I didn't want to have to tie them. I didn't want them to find me, and they figured out where I went. But it took me trying to get into a neighbor's house before I got hospitalized.
The onset was, at the time, seemed very sudden. She had a psychotic break. So there wasn't, at the time, there didn't seem like there was any buildup to that. I just got a call from her friends, our friends at church camp, and said, "You've got to come get her." They had already had an encounter with law enforcement at that point. Law enforcement said, "Hey, if her parents can pick her up, that'd be best. Otherwise, we'll have to take her in." So very sudden, very frightening. We did pick her up, brought her back. She was arrested here. I guess not arrested. She was taken by police officers to the emergency room because of the psychosis. I tried to stop her from entering a neighbor's house, and there was an altercation. And that so it was also sudden, traumatic, surprising, frightening. That all happened in a 24-hour period, maybe an 18-hour period. My husband and I owned a business at the time, and Lexi was very unstable. When she was released from the hospital, which tends to happen too soon with our loved ones, they're not stable. The doctor said she is unsafe to be by herself. She really needs to be with an individual. She needs care 24/7. So my husband and I split up our work day. He worked 3.5 days, I worked 3.5 days, and the rest of the time when we weren't working, one of us was with her. I slept in her apartment in front of the door to keep her in her apartment. Our whole life just reoriented to keeping her safe and trying to find her help for the psychosis.
For me, I don't think recovery ever ends. It's a long, slow, frustrating process, and sometimes there's little setbacks every now and then. But recovery to me is being able to know, being on the right medication, meds, the right doctors, those combinations, and the right therapists and doctors, and all of them gelling together. And also your own personal care and family support and nanny support.
She really has taken over managing her own care. She manages her own medication. She makes her own doctor's appointments. She follows through with her doctor's appointments. She knows what she needs to do, and she does it, which is pretty incredibly wonderful, because way back in the past, we handled everything. So to see her go through that process of recovery to where now she's in charge of her own life, and the important decisions in her life. We're here for support. We'll always be here for support. But she's an adult. She takes care of her own life, and I'm really happy for her about that.
I was stable, but I didn't become involved in my own recovery until I started going to NAMI Connections Recovery Support Group. I was invited by a member, and it was the first time I realized, oh, I'm not alone. There are a lot of people that have similar things as me.
It was pretty amazing, really, because initially, just with her being so ill, she wasn't getting any treatment other than a medication type treatment, because she couldn't do talk therapy. At one point, she wasn't talking at all. She had a very, very limited vocabulary. It was like 4 words. It's pretty hard to have any type of talk therapy when the person can't talk. So she wasn't getting any of that type of care. And I was going to the support group because I wanted to, for me, but I also wanted for her to be a model, to show her, this is how we care for ourselves. When we're involved in something that we don't understand, we go out and we get more information. So I was doing that, again, for myself, but to help be a model. And I was fortunate enough to meet some of the people at our Connections Recovery support group, and that gave me an opportunity to say, hey, my daughter's just afraid to come. And one of those wonderful people called her and talked to her and said, hey, come to the group. I think the most wonderful thing happened that night, because she came out of the group, and she still kind of had a limited communication capacity at that point. But she said, for the first time since I became ill, or something to this nature, I realized I'm not alone. And that was really, that was just heartwarming for her to know that she wasn't alone in this journey, and that there were people other than her parents to help provide her with support. So that was phenomenal. And then she just kind of never stopped being a participant with NAMI since then. She became a co-facilitator, and then she took peer-to-peer, and then has trained to be a state trainer for both of those programs, in a way to give back and to stay involved for her own recovery.